Hi, Grandpa Dave. Nice evening by the fireplace. I've got a very interesting several sessions, probably three of them to go through with you, and I'm entitling this series A Millennial Eye Popper. A Millennial Eye Popper. I'm going to cover some details here that I would say probably not too many of you have ever heard anything presented in this fashion before in your life. How's that for going out on the limb? But in this Millennial Eye Popper, I'm going to cover a topic that has to do with the profound confusion in Christianity about the sheep that go into the millennial kingdom, and they say as born again but mortal believers. So we're going to get into that this evening, and there will be probably two or three, at least three sessions, I think, on this. So concerning the Millennial Eye Popper, I start out with a couple of questions here. Is whose names from the nations are not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, and whose names currently could be written in the book of life from the foundation of the world? These are questions that we will, at least on two occasions, find very concrete answers from Scripture. So I have a lot of information, details, scripture verses, and key points that I need to get out clearly to you. So I have my glasses handy in case the printing isn't right for me, and I will commentate as I can go along and make this as meaningful for us all as possible. In approaching the topic of the sheep in Matthew 25, which were selected by the Lord out of the, now this is important, out of the remaining nations at the end of the tribulation upon the Lord's return. Follow the theme of nations. Not once in the Bible is the term nations applied to born again believers. It's a separate category. And this is going to be important as we develop this theme. We must firstly ascertain the significance of this exclusive judgment. It's an exclusive judgment which is on the remaining and still alive nations at the end of the tribulation and upon the Lord's return. I'm slowing these words down and emphasizing them because these are treated just without any consideration whatsoever, okay? All right. In attempting to solve the mystery as to the identity of the sheep, it will require all of us a genuine willingness to look at this conundrum by considering a people group completely overlooked in Christianity, which has created their monster, I would say, interpretation based on exclusively the categories of saved and lost, trying to fit everything into that, okay? Three scriptures are completely ignored in attempting to solve the sheep issue, which are the following. Three different scriptures, okay? First one is 1 Corinthians 10:32. This is a very interesting verse in the context of what we're talking about here now. Give no offense either to the Jews or to the Greeks or to the church of God. Let me read that again to you. Give no offense either to the Jews or to the Greeks or to the church of God. Now Acts 3:21. Whom heaven must receive until the times of the restoration of all things, which God has spoken by the mouth of all the holy prophets since the world began. How much have you heard regarding the overall coverage concerning the restoration of all things? It would probably be pretty scarce, I would guess, anyway. Okay, moving along, Matthew 19:28. So Jesus said to them, assuredly I say to you, that in the regeneration, when the Son of Man sits on the thrones of his glory, get that, in the regeneration, same as reformation. You who have followed me will also sit on 12 thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel. One of the hallmarks of the millennium is the restoration of all things. We see that the wolf will lay down with the lamb, and the child will play at the hole of the asp, and an infant will die at 100 years old, and it goes on and on and on. Like there's some real restoration that takes place during the millennial kingdom. And how does that impact the nations? How is that impacting and could impact the nations and solve this conundrum that Christianity has been battling with for years and years and years? I mentioned in another video that this book that I really enjoy by Dwight Pentecost, Things to Come, there's a section in there that talks about the impossibility of born again but mortal believers going into the millennium. And we'll get into that a little bit more in this next section and maybe perhaps the next one. Now, I did a little research and I punched into AI what could be the condition during the millennial kingdom. And if you don't like the AI, I apologize. I don't like it. I'm just trying to see what it's got there in that sense for information. And this is what I came across as I punched in the millennium. What's it going to be like? Okay. During the millennium, it is believed that humans will be restored and live longer. Biblical passages such as Isaiah 65:20 suggest that life expectancy will increase dramatically, reminiscent of the long lives of the early patriarchs before the fall. The period is characterized by peace, righteousness, and the fulfillment of God's promises, with the earth undergoing restoration to its original state. Those who are resurrected and glorified will reign with Christ, and the world will be transformed by the benefit of the humanity. Overall, the millennium is envisioned as a time of spiritual, physical renewal when humans will experience a significant improvement in their lives. This passage and this concept suggests a return to the harmony of Eden, where animals and humans coexist peacefully and the natural world is restored to its intended glory. Premillennialism holds that Christ will return before the millennium, initiating the 1,000-year reign. So that's a little article from AI. Now, allow me to refresh our memory together on a matter that is so crucial in this theory, in this topic, I mean. Now, allow me to refresh all as to the widely held, however unbiblical and completely impossible hypothesis in describing the proposed condition and status of the selected sheep as born-again believers, however still having mortal bodies, going into the millennial kingdom, supposedly being saved through the everlasting gospel or some other means of proclamation by angels or this or that, to be saved during the tribulation, no hope of a glorified body forever, shown by this great error. Then on top of that, further added to the massive confusion is the popular, however gross, error being purported regarding 144,000 Jews being sealed in Revelation 7:4, and I heard the number of those who were sealed, 144,000. All of the tribes of children of Israel were sealed, and allegedly preaching the gospel during the tribulation of 3.5 years, by which a group of believers are saved in the 3.5 years, listen, which no man can number. There should be a flag right here, right now. Revelation chapter 7, verse 9, after this I beheld, and lo, a great multitude which no man could number, of all nations and kindreds and people and tongues, stood before the throne and before the Lamb, clothed with white robes and palms in their hands. Okay, now don't be bothered by me, but I want to shake us up because we're not thinking, folks. We are not thinking, and now I'm going to give you a basis of why I say we're not thinking. Okay, for anyone that knows math a little bit, through simple math and accounting for the population at the beginning of the tribulation, with large numbers dying, and adding those who are being born during the 3.5 years, which is approximately 363,000 per day currently being born now. Subtracting the number which die of natural causes each day, currently now is about 150,000 per day. However, not knowing the number of people which will die during the 3.5 years of tribulation, which people will be dying just in huge numbers, is it not an insult to basic thinking that the net population could not be numbered after only 3.5 years, with all those people dying and hardly keeping up with the birth rate or anything that, plus whatever the thousands of people that will die? I get worked up about this because it's so off the charts wrong. For one thing, moving on here, I have to catch my breath. Moving on here, for one thing, it would require every single person on the planet to get saved, to even approach a number that would be difficult to count. However, we have evidence in Scripture that that is exactly the opposite of what's going to go on. Let me read to you from Revelation chapter 6, verse 12. I looked when he opened the sixth seal, and behold, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became like blood. And the stars of heaven fell to the earth, as a fig tree drops its late figs when it is shaken by mighty wind. Then the sky receded as a scroll when it is rolled up, and every mountain and island was moved out of its place. Not to want to be there, right? All right, now, key verse here. Verse 15. And the kings of the earth, let's count the different groups. The kings of the earth, the great men, the rich men, the commanders, the mighty men, every slave, and every free man did what? What did they do? The verse tells us. Hid themselves. Not repented, not believed, hid themselves in the caves and in the rocks of the mountains. This is what they said. And said to the mountains and rocks, fall on us, and hide us from the face of him who sits on the throne and from the wrath of the Lamb. Does that sound like the gospel is really pounding? Everyone, it's talking everyone here. For the great day of his wrath has come. Now listen to this question. And who can stand? Who can stand? Consider, if at the beginning of the tribulation there are 8 billion people on the planet, by subjecting those who die and those who are born during the period of time, and further accurately understanding what this multitude that they're supposed to be collected to truly represents, this complete Darby dispensational teaching theory is simply that, and is exposed to be a completely false on every level. This is the teaching I grew up with. I grew up in a Baptist church my whole life. I went 4 years to a Baptist Bible college, preached in a Baptist church. It's not true. It doesn't line up. It doesn't fit. Okay, now, calm down. Now, to the point. Thus, the matter of the sheep and who they are requires a deep and sober revisit in an attempt to clarify the actual identity of these sheep, being selected at the judgment of the nations. Oh, saints, look at this. These aren't believers. This is the judgment on the nations. The same as Satan will go up at the end of the millennium and deceive the who? The nations. So now the Lord has gathered all the nations who have survived the tribulation. So these that gather there are not part of people, nations who were resurrected, anything. It's simply those who survived the tribulation and now are called by the Lord to be judged. All right, I think I got ahead of my notes, but that's okay. The judgment of the nations. Question: are born again believers ever referred to in Scripture as the nations? They come out of every tribe, tongue, and nation, but not are the nations. Rather, that's completely the opposite. Let's look at a couple scriptures here. Revelation 5:9, and they sang a new song, saying, "You are worthy to take the scroll and to open its seals, for you were slain and have redeemed us to God by your blood." Watch now. Redeemed us, what? Out of every tribe, tongue, and people and nation. You're not saved out of a nation if you're a nation. It's not the same thing. There has to be different. Okay, Acts 17:24. Acts 17:24. God who made the world and everything in it, since he is Lord of heaven and earth, does not dwell in temples made with hands, nor is he worshipped with men's hands as though he needed anything, since he gives to all life, breath, and all things. And he has made from one blood every nation of men to dwell on the face of the earth, and has determined their pre-appointed times and the boundaries of their dwelling, so that they should seek the Lord in the hope that they might grope for him and find him. The nations are called in this way so that they should seek the Lord in hopes that they might grope and find him, though he is not far from them. So we'll stop this session, and I'll begin in the next session to continue on, okay?